What is going on, you guys? Scott here, and today we're going to be running through a pretty quick gear loadout of my winter camping setup. This is the gear that I like to take with me on every camping trip. It's not going to be clothes, it's not going to be food, it's really going to be the guts, right? The main gear I take with me every damn trip. Now, winter camping's a lot different than summer camping, okay? And it's one of the times that I love to camp now that I've gotten used to it. There's an element of danger involved in the wintertime that's not there in the summer. It's a little scarier, if you will, because it's night so long, right? Nighttime lasts 14 hours sometimes in the winter here, or in the area that I'm at. So it's a whole different ball game, and it requires different gear. So I'm gonna start with kind of the outside stuff, and what I'm gonna be loading is my Pulk sled. And what this is, guys, is a child sled that I drilled some holes into. I then put grommets in, ran paracord around, and then just tied off little loops so that I can lash gear down afterwards. I don't have a video on how to make this. It's pretty self-explanatory, and there's also a bunch of them on YouTube already that are really good. So if you want some notes on how to make this, not to check it out, but if you want some notes on how to make these, like I say, go check out Syntax 77s. He's got a great one. All right, so Pulk sled. I also will carry a backpack. Some of my gear goes in the backpack, some of the more delicate stuff, but the majority will go in the Pulk sled, so I don't have the weight on my shoulders. I'm gonna be able to this way carry extra gear. I'm gonna more easily traverse through the terrain in that snow if it's pulling behind me. And it's in the wintertime, it's my way to go. It's my favorite way to go, I should say. What does it really matter if it's my favorite way to go or not? I find in the wintertime that this is a much more effective way to backpack camp when possible. All right, so my backpack will load some of the gear in. The Pulk sled will also have some of the gear in between the two. Just so you know how it works, guys. I've got these two 5-foot pieces of PVC pipe. They each have paracord running through them, with carabiners on either side. What those do is they clip in here on the front. Make sure I can get it, yeah. Clip here on the front. And I don't think that actually focused until afterwards, sorry. But you can clip them on the front, and then I clip them onto the hip belt of my backpack. And you don't want them straight to your pack. You want them crisscrossed. You want to make an X with the poles when you put them on your pack. That way, when you're going downhill, it doesn't start cheating around and try to beat you down the hill, right? It's going to stay behind you much more effectively if you cross those poles. It'll work a lot more effectively if you cross those poles. All right, last thing is going to be my hiking sticks, my trekking poles. So I pretty much use these all the time anyway. In the wintertime, I put the little snow grabber thing, you know, the little snow attachment. And I use these for hiking, but then I also use them for my center pole in the tent. So the teepee tent's going to need these as a center pole. Okay, that is all the outside stuff that I'll be kind of using to carry my gear. We'll get into the gear. All right. So the first thing I'm putting in here is a tarp. I'm gonna lay this on the bottom, and then after the gear's in here, I will wrap everything up and lash it with bungee. I used to put 2 different backpacks in here, then load those and wrap them, but you just waste too much space. I may not have dried this tarp really well. There's no mold on it, but it may be compromised. I'll have to, well, is that mold right there? I don't think so. I think that's all stuff. Anyway, all right, so got my tarp here, ready to start loading, guys. And the first thing I'm going to load in here is my tent. And the tent that I like to use in the wintertime, in fact, it's the only hot tent that I own, is the Luxe Minipeak XL. Maybe? No? If I hide my face, maybe it'll maybe it'll focus. So the Luxe Minipeak XL, and guys, Luxe is a brand that has started to almost get a bad reputation online. I feel like there's a lot of people griping about them, but you're not going to find a hot tent like this at this affordable of a price other than Luxe. I mean, you can go to Wish, Alibaba, something like that, but their tents are very affordable. I think because of that, they're very busy. And I did find myself, I had one question. They weren't incredibly helpful with the answer. They did answer though, so I'll give them that. But the Luxe Minipeak XL for me for 3 seasons now has been a really nice tent. It's wintertime in Colorado, guys. I apologize, but my hands, they were a little ashy. And if you can see that my hands are ashy, that's a bad sign. All right, guys, so just a little lotion, a little Colorado wintertime tradition. Cracked lips, cracked knuckles. It's very dry here. All right, so the Luxe Minipeak XL. I've also got the stove jack for this. This is the heat resistant material your stovepipe goes through. And I will put this in actually on the bottom because I don't like to fold it up in here. So inside the tent, I'm gonna do sleep system next, then I'll move to stove. So let's jump into a description of the sleep system and then I will load it up. Okay, so here is my winter sleep system. I'm gonna be putting this together right now. And it's something I wanted to deep dive into because it's really important. I also see a lot of questions on it. There's a whole bunch of different schools of thought regarding how you should layer your sleeping system, if you should even layer your sleeping system. Do you wear clothes inside or not? So I'll show you what I do. The first layer I put down, guys, is my big Agnes Aircore. This is an air mat that gets you up off the ground. The main thing here is to get up off the ground because in wintertime, the earth is just cold. It's cold even in the summertime a lot of times if you're in the mountains, but in winter that earth is really cold and you want to get up off the ground as much as possible. This is 3.5 inches, I think, of height, which is nice because I sleep on my side. That helps, but also it's great to get you off the ground. However, it's full of air, so that air can get really cold. And the R factor, they didn't even post the R factors on these until recently. The R factor on this, which is an insulation. When I say R factor, guys, that's insulation. And the higher the number, the more insulation or protection from the cold you're gonna have. But the protection from the cold from air is not great. And if I only used this, I would be cold throughout the night. So the next layer is gonna be my Termarest Z-lite here, right? I think we've all probably seen these out in the field, and if you haven't, check them out. They're a sleeping pad, but they're also great for insulating and staying warm. So what I do is I put that silver side up, and I put that on top of the big Agnes Aircore. So now I've got my height off the ground, and I've also got warmth. This is gonna reflect some of my body warmth back at me. I hear questions. This is one of the questions I hear. Should I put my highest R value at the bottom on the ground with my air pad on top? Some people think that's the best way to go. I've always heard from the old timers, if you will, to keep your highest R value closest to you. So get up off the ground with your air mat, high R value or high insulation close to the body. All right, next is gonna be a synthetic sleeping bag. And this is a cheap summer bag. What I have here is an Ozark Trail 40-degree summer bag. This is an envelope style, so it's not a mummy. And I use it almost as like a bivvy. This is not going to be much warmth on its own. A 40-degree bag in the wintertime is not a good look. Recipe for disaster even. But what I like to do is use this as an outer shell, and on the inside I'm going to be putting a 30-degree down quilt. It's the REI Magma 30 is the one that I use. Before I had a down quilt, guys, I used to use a 30-degree synthetic mummy inside of this bag. But the idea being I'm layering sleeping bags, and again, that's sometimes controversial. Some people don't think you should ever do it. I've had a lot of luck, and I do this in Colorado all the time. Let me get that quilt. There it is. All right. So let me stuff this inside the sleeping bag. We'll see if I can do this without knocking everything off. All right. There we go. So now we've got basically 4 layers, right? We've got the 2 below. We've got, and by 2 below, I mean the air mat and the Termarest. We've got a synthetic bag acting as a bivvy with a warmer bag inside. This protects the down from getting wet, but it also is definitely a layer of insulation. Now, inside of here, I've always worn thermals, clothing, puffy jacket. I get all clothed up and get inside. This is another place where you can go 2 ways. Some people like to go clothes inside. Some people go very minimal clothes inside their bag. And the idea here is gloves or mittens, right? Are you going to separate the fingers, which in extreme cold is not good because you can feel the cold in each finger, versus mittens where maybe you can have some more body warmth inside and cocoon up. I'm starting to think maybe the second one's better. I don't know. That's one that you guys can tell me if you want to comment with any feedback on it. I've always gone full clothes, every layer possible inside. You guys tell me. All right. Last thing is my pillow. A pillow. A pillow. A pillow. Depending on where you're from. I just wanted to make sure I covered all my bases for anyone who might be watching. Guys, so for my pillow, I used to use inflatable pillows all the time. In the wintertime, again, that air gets cold. I like having a nice little warm, fuzzy pillow. This is, again, like $9 little camp pillow. Ozark Trail, they have, Eddie Bauer makes the same one. These are very common, but I like to roll these up and have that fleece side where I can just sleep comfortably. And in the wintertime, that is super nice. Okay, enough with the sleep system. Back to the Pulk sled loadout. All right, cool. So there's kind of a breakdown of how I like to use the equipment. Like I say, that's one that everyone does a little differently. You just want to be safe in the wintertime, right? Because if you're not, you might end up doing push-ups in a sleeping bag all night trying to stay warm, and that is not fun. All right, Termarest, Big Agnes. Bam. Synthetic outer, down inner, pillow. So now we've got tent and we've got sleep system, and I also need to put in my wood stove. So in the wintertime, like I say, guys, this is a hot tent. I like to use a wood stove to keep it. In fact, I always use a wood stove to keep my tent warm. Shout out to LiteOutdoors and Brennan over there. They didn't give this to me. I bought it myself, and I've had it again for probably, why do I say again? I haven't even said it. I've had this stove for about 3 seasons. It's titanium, it's super light, it's less than 2 pounds. And when you put this whole thing together, you've got a working wood stove to keep your tent warm and to cook on. This is a cylinder stove. So again, controversial with some people. They hate cylinder stoves. They want a flat top. I myself like it just for how small it packs, for the weight. And again, Brennan over there at LiteOutdoors is a very cool dude. So shout out to them and give them a look if you haven't. All right. So let's look at cooking, because we just did stove. And oh, wait a minute, hold on. I knew I was doing something wrong. All right, so my backpack, the titanium stove is gonna go in my pack. Like I say, some things will go in here. Some of the more sensitive, I guess you would call it, will go in here, but I will do that as I go. All right, so stove is in here. Now, for cooking in the wintertime, guys, I don't bring any isopropyl or isobutane, whatever those little canisters are. I only will bring my wood stove for the tent, and I'll boil water on that. I cook in my tent. And wintertime, guys, is the only time I cook food in my tent, by the way. And I do it all the time in the winter. I will also bring a twig stove. My twig stove, this thing is awesome. And if you've ever watched videos of mine in the wintertime, I love to use this. So if I need to, if I'm hiking or if I'm on the trail and I need to just set up and cook some food, I'll bring this out, make a quick fire, and cook my food up for lunch or for breakfast or whatever it might be. Other than this, I'm using the stove that's inside the tent. All right, I threw that in the backpack as well. Now my cooking gear, like everything else, is a little more robust. I like to have the little 2-liter Alpine pot. The reason for this, it's bigger than I would ever carry in the summer. Let me take that lid off. It's bigger than I would carry in the summer, but I'm melting snow typically for water. Your water filters, you know, your like Sawyer's or whatever you might have, if it's below 32 degrees and there's any water in there, it's going to compromise that filter when it freezes. That's why you really don't filter water on winter trips. I almost said Christmas trips, not winter trips. That shows a little bit of bias from my side, I think. But a 2-liter pot allows me to melt snow more effectively and faster, if you will, in bigger quantity. I like to have a little pop-out cup, so if I'm making soup or if I'm making coffee, I can have something to drink my beverage out of while I now use my cup to cook in. I will also bring, this is a little Tokes titanium small. This is 300 milliliters, but I like to have this one as well. So I will have more cooking gear than normal. That way I can be melting snow, boiling water, drinking coffee, eating soup, drinking water. I can do all that. So, all right. Let me put this up real quick. Bam! That goes in the backpack. All right, so we've talked tent, sleep system, method of travel. How are we going to get all this crap out there, right? Let's talk, wood processing. Okay. 2 things that I bring to process wood. One's going to be a little folding saw. Pretty standard. Oh, wow. Safety first, guys. Almost took my nose off right there. Okay, this is why I have cardboard on the axe, just so you know. All right, so I've got a folding saw, and you can cut little pieces of wood with it. I use this not as much as I thought I would. When I need it, it's awesome, and I carry it for that reason. But what I use more than anything is my axe. And this is a hatchet. I should say my hatchet. I lost the sheath for it, so I carry it with cardboard and duct tape wrapped around, just so I can't hurt myself or hurt my gear. So small hatchet lets me cut up wood very, very easily. Now, one thing I carry on the outside of my pack is this small little Termarest seat pad. And that's because anytime I stop in the winter, if I want to tie my shoe, I throw this down and my knee can go on it without getting wet. If I want to sit and make some coffee, I can sit on this. It's comfortable, it's warm, it's nice. So a little sit pad, I put that on my pack, and let me throw that in. All right, so let me also throw some tent stakes in. And the reason I'm showing them and they're not in a bag is because you can see they're a little bit heavier duty than I would use in the summertime. They're not aluminum, they're not titanium, they're not groundhog style, the little 3 little wedge one. These are pretty hefty and a little bit heavier than normal stake. And it's because the ground can be frozen out here. And so sometimes I need that when I'm staking the tent in. Stand by one and I'll tell you a little secret about getting them out of frozen ground. All right. So if you have a stake and then you've staked your tent down overnight and the ground freezes, it can be really hard to pull this thing out. In fact, I've like torn tents up trying to pull them out before. Here's the trick though. Here's what I realized. If you just tap them with a rock or something, get a rock and tap them down, then pull them up, all good. So if you didn't know that one, try it out. I didn't know it, and God, it made a huge difference. All right, little stuff. We've gone through most of the big things here, guys. The big items are checked off. The big rocks are checked. A few other things that I take in the wintertime. This is a Zoleo. This is a satellite communicator that, here, let me see if I can get a close-up of that. That is kind of a competitor to Garmin. I had a Garmin Mini there, and it was so mini, I don't have it any longer because I left it out in the mountains somewhere in the Mount Evans Wilderness. So if anyone has found a Garmin Mini in the Mount Evans Wilderness area, you're welcome. So Zoleo, guys, it's not a GPS in the sense of a Garmin, but it does allow you to send text messages, SOS, all that kind of good stuff. So this is new to me. I'm super excited to use it here on my next trip. Put that on the bag. That doesn't go in the bag. That hangs on the bag. And then basics, guys. I carry paracord for 2 reasons. One might be repair, but also for bear bag hanging if I want to hang food. In the wintertime here in Colorado, when it's snowy and cold, I usually keep my food in the tent. I'll put it in my pack, keep it away from me in the tent. I have a wood fire burning all night, and I feel somewhat safe. If that is dumb, let me know. Let me know in the comments. All right, let's talk light sources. All right, so in the summertime, I would do this. I would bring one headlamp, not this one, I'd bring a different one, but I'd bring one headlamp. And then as a backup, my iPhone has a flashlight feature that is my backup. And that's all I would take. In the winter, I bring a bunch of different stuff. So I bring this Ozark Trail headlamp that does not have a direct beam. This has a diffused beam that gives you light all over the viewing area, if you will, and especially peripherals. And what I like about this is in the hot tent, I'm going to be spending a ton of time because night is so long during winter that this gives me a nice, comfortable light. It's not a direct beam, just, you know, cutting through everything. And this is my winter headlamp. I also bring a torch. And for this one, let's give a big shout out, guys, to Vaunt. I've never met a brand that loves to send YouTubers flashlights like Vaunt. I think I saw a sewing channel with a Vaunt review. Yeah, thanks to Vaunt, they sent me some pretty nice little torches here, guys. And I'm going to be taking this with me on my next trip. And I'm going to see how they do. And then on that trip video, I will be giving these away. So one of you guys will win 2 Vaunt VNT TF01 flashlights from Vaunt.com. But this is my lamp I'm going to take, and let me throw it into my backpack. Next thing is going to be a candle lantern. And my UCO candle lantern, guys, the review video I did on this is actually somewhat popular. But if you're not familiar with candle lanterns, it's like a little hurricane lamp with a 9-hour candle in it. I've got it all fouled up here. Yeah, with a 9-hour candle in it. So you can light that, and this spring-led candle or spring-fed candle will burn for 9 hours. I like to hang these at nighttime, especially when I'm sleeping, just to have a little something going on in case I wake up. This is not going to provide any noticeable warmth in the size of tent I have. If you're in a tiny backpacker tent, I've used these to warm up my hands and my toes before. I also melted my jacket and I burned my finger, but they did warm up. All right, so let me get this back in. I'm gonna throw it in here. And then there's one other light that I don't have around me, but I have a flat LED work light that's rechargeable. It's got a battery that lasts for hours. And I like to bring that with me because if I'm setting up at nighttime or in the dark out in the woods, it's nice to have a little work light I can either hang on a tree or put on the ground while I'm setting up. It's much more comfortable for me than just having a headlamp where, you know, everything looks like a deep dark ocean that you can't see in. So the work light's nice. And what I'll do is make sure I've been putting some close-ups of that light when I find it over what I was just talking on just there. So that's the big difference there. I have 4 different light sources versus 1 in the summertime. Stoves are a completely different setup, mainly using wood as a fuel source, nothing else. I've got a hot tent that's a teepee tent with a wood stove burning in it, 4-layered sleep system that we looked at, and then a Pulk sled to get it all out. So, of course, guys, bear spray, always have some sort of protection in the woods, even in the wintertime. It may not be a bear, it could be a cat, it could be a human, but you might want to have some sort of protection with you. Counter assault. Putting this in my bag. This is my first aid kit and my gear repair kit. It's all in one Ziploc bag, and I've got tough tape, duct tape, waterproof matches, all the first aid stuff I would need. Oh, and very importantly, the rubber tip that I need to put on my walking stick. Here. You know the little rubber, does it do it? The little rubber concrete thing, so if you're using these on concrete, that is what I use when I'm putting my tent up so I don't punch right through the material of the tent. So again, I just carry a lot more repair stuff for gear as well, because if something broke or ripped or went down out in the field, especially in the wintertime, I want to repair it. All right, and then my fire starting kit is completely different in the wintertime as well. Summertime, I'd probably just carry a little bit of fire putty, and then knowing that there's pine straw and stuff if I really needed to start a fire. However, the chances of using fire in the summertime are not as likely. Don't need them, they could be banned, right? So I have some fire putty, which is awesome. I've got some little fire starting sticks, little cricket sticks, pretty familiar with those, I'm sure. And then I've also got my collapsible billows, my little blow tube. These things are just awesome when you're using little stoves. Really, fires in general. So that's my fire starting kit. And I think I had crap everywhere I felt like, but I think we've almost got it. Okay, so all the big stuff is in. Oh, one other thing. Here. 2 other things. The knife I use is different in the wintertime. I bring a little Swiss Army knife, and the reason is it's got scissors that I use for cutting repairs and stuff on my jackets. I just have more uses for a tool like this in the wintertime. I also need the screwdrivers for some of the equipment in case. And then the last little piece of gear I forgot. I love this thing, man. Again, not a sponsor. I just love little dumb trinkets, but this is a Govee thermometer. It Bluetooths to your phone, and you can just clip it on your pack. I like to throw it outside of my tent and just let it sit on the ground overnight so I can track how cold it is outside. But it stores information, tracks all your temperatures and humidity, and I don't know, they're not expensive. It's awesome. Let me throw these in my pack. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and start rolling this up. Now, I will say, it's a little odd when I have this thing on a sled. The way I've been packing this, and I get the bungees on here in a second, it does look like I'm just pulling a small body behind me. So far, no one's given me crap. Maybe that says something about me, that is a worry I would look like that. I doubt it. All right, hold on. Yeah. No, officer, there's nothing in this. You always know someone's innocent when they say, "Why, no, officer, I wouldn't do that." Bam. All right, so here we are. Loaded sled, fully packed in here, ready to go. Got the poles ready to attach to the backpack. Have the backpack with some of the more delicate items in it. And what this really does is it opens up the opportunity to sleep comfortably in the winter. You can carry extra gear. I didn't get into power or like how much food you want. You want to bring real steaks in the winter? You could. Is that a smart idea? I'm not sure. But yeah, this is a whole different way of camping, and I really enjoy it. It's one that I get a lot of questions on, and I appreciate you guys sitting here going through it with me today. Stay safe out there. Bye.
I'm just stuck here in a dream. Long, long, long. I'm just stuck here in a dream.